Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. This is so good to hear. She read that introduction just the way I wrote it. Thank you all for coming. It's really great to be here. It's great to meet all of you and see some familiar faces once again. I'm sorry you have to spend the afternoon with politicians, but enough about these folks over here. These are the folks, these state house members and county commissioners and school board members. That is where this begins. Politics doesn't start at the top, in the White House or in the Senate or in the House of Representatives. It starts down here. It starts down here, local units of government, and then it percolates back up. And that's how we get more freedom and opportunity in America. I just want to talk about a couple of things, because I know you've had an awfully long day, then we'll thankfully let you go and get back to your families. I really do think that we're starting to see, and it's sort of under the radar right now, but a new issue emerging in 2018 in the midterms in politics in America today. And it's really sad that this issue would even emerge, but it's something we're going to have to face head on. So when I look out to this wonderful audience today, and I look out at all of you that have worked so hard and come so far for your families and your community, I look out and I see Minnesotans and I see Americans. I don't see an identity group. I don't see blacks and whites, gay, straight, rich and poor, Hispanic, Chinese, Japanese. I see Americans. And we are up against, quite frankly, an opposing party that wants to balkanize and divide Minnesota and this country by identity. If you're straight, you must be against gays. If you're Japanese American, you must be against Chinese Americans. If you're African American, you must be against white Americans. Enough of this. We have got to move ahead and get out from under this identity politics that divides us and talk about the things that unite us. And that is freedom and opportunity and the rule of law and prosperity and private property and all of the things that you came here to enjoy and to take advantage of for your family. And the most important one of those things is economic growth and opportunity. Understand, for the last 10 years, this country has been stuck in a mini recession. We have grown far below the post-World War II average of 3.3%. We've only been growing at 1.9%. Incomes have been stagnant. Wages have been falling. In the span of just the last 500 days, the 115th Congress, of which I'm proud to be a part, and yes, the Trump administration, has turned this economy around to the point where we're not growing at just 2%. We're not growing at 3%. We're growing over 4%. Wages are going up 3% a year. That's the fastest growth in 10 years. The average family in Minnesota, too, is going to get a tax cut of $3,000. The average person gets a tax cut of $2,000. We're seeing bonuses and utility bill rebates. We're seeing the economy looking the way it should look so that you have the opportunity that you deserve, that you want. Understand one thing. If the economy, or if the midterms go the wrong way, so does the economy. All of that gets taken away. My particular opponent in Minnesota, too, has pledged to repeal the tax cut entirely, from top to bottom. Should call it the worst piece of legislation in history. Since when did economic opportunity and keeping more of what you earn become a bad thing? Maybe that's why more Democrats view socialism in a positive way than they do capitalism. You know what capitalism really means? You know what capitalism means. It means labor and capital coming together. It means the businessman or woman says, I'm going to provide you with a tool so that you can do your job more efficiently and become more productive and earn more money. I always like to say the truck driver is a lot more productive with the truck. So the truck comes from the businessman or woman, and the labor comes from the worker, and when they put labor and capital together in a capitalist world, everybody benefits. Our opponents believe in a zero-sum society. That if somebody gains, it must come from somebody else. It's sort of the economic version of identity politics. You can't have a rising tide that lifts all boats. Everybody can't do better, which, by the way, is exactly what economic growth means. When I say growth of 4.1%, that means everybody got richer by 4%. That's national income accounting. That's a good thing when everybody benefits. A rising tide lifts all boats, John Kennedy used to say. Now the party of Kennedy says, oh, no, that can't be true. If you do better, it has to be because you're doing worse. That is not the American way. That's a zero-sum society that pits Americans against one another. The reason we are all proud Minnesotans, proud Americans, the reason we believe in free minds and free markets is so everybody can do better together. Everybody, labor and capital can come together for a better life for all of us. That's what's at stake in this 2018 election. Let me tell you what else is at stake. I don't have to tell anybody in this room how important freedom and economic opportunity are. But we can't have it if we don't have borders. We can't have it if we don't reward people who immigrate to this country the right way and doing it the legal way, and instead we reward people that violate the law. Now, I just got back from San Diego at the border, and there's a place called the Port of Entry. And any refugee or anybody wanting to come to America can come to the Port of Entry and file for asylum and do refugee status and do it the right way. The reason we have a crisis on the border is they're not going there. They're not going to the ports of entry. They're coming illegally in areas that aren't guarded. In San Diego, there's a border wall, and it's worked quite well. It's actually two of them. One, a corrugated steel wall about 10 feet high, another one, chain link fence. In the 1980s, there was nothing there. In the 1980s, 628,000 in 1 year were apprehended coming across illegally. One Customs and Border Patrol officer told me that there was a point on a hill, they called it Smuggler's Gulch, where the smugglers were so empowered, were so enforced, that the Customs and Border Patrol agents would stand on a hill and watch them come across illegally. So finally in San Diego, they built a wall. It's actually worked. The city of San Ysidro is now a thriving city that's safe, has a new mall, a new neighborhood, because of more infrastructure and more personnel on the border. But if you go about 15 miles inward, which I did, you find what happens to the wall. It stops. There's nothing. Go all the way to Arizona. It is a totally open border. Now, again, that's the difference in this election. Our friends on the left don't care about that. But that demeans everybody that immigrated the right way. That demeans your vote if we dilute your vote with the potential of illegal votes. It demeans the hard work you do if people coming here illegally can take advantage of American generosity. As Ronald Reagan once famously said, a nation that does not control its borders is no nation at all. We need more skilled immigrants. We need legal immigration. But we can't have that with illegal immigration, and that's going to be a key issue. Our Democrat friends now say they want to abolish ICE, abolish the Customs and Border Patrol agents, abolish borders. Friends, we've got a little fiscal crisis in Washington, D.C. It's called a $21 trillion debt. If we're going to put a welcome sign out to everybody to come here legally and get free medical care, free education, and tax our schools, and tax our correction facilities, we will be broke much sooner than we're already going to be broke. And that's not a good thing. So that's a huge issue in this election. Finally, I just want to say this, and I'll let you open it up for questions, and then we can all get back to important things on Sunday. What's at stake in this election is all the progress over the last 500 days will be undone if we don't prevail in the House of Representatives, if the Republican doesn't keep the majority. You will have Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They have already promised to file articles of impeachment against this administration. You don't have to be a big Donald Trump fan to realize the dysfunction and government grinding to a halt if we have articles of impeachment. The administration has done, any good progress is done. Maxine Waters will be the chair of the Financial Services Committee. Every small community bank and credit union will be under the gun because they're going to reinstitute Dodd-Franks and compliance costs. Every farmer, every agricultural interest will have the waters of the U.S. ruled back. We'll have the National Labor Relations Board coming down and cracking down on tribes and small businesses. It will bring this economy to a grinding halt. Government will come to a grinding halt because of the dysfunction and the obstructionism that will occur if our friends in the Democratic Party take control of Congress. And of course, Adam Schiff will be the chair of the Intel Committee, which means one partisan investigation after another. You know, all the people that say they want people to get along, and I've co-sponsored a number of pieces of legislation that were bipartisan. On the Metropolitan Council, on juvenile justice, on criminal justice. I've worked with Democrats across the aisle. You will have none of that if Nancy Pelosi is the next speaker. You will have no progress, you will have an end to economic prosperity, and you will have government dysfunction. And I'm not being hyperbolic about this. They have already pledged to do this. That's what's at stake in this election. So we all need to remember why we're here. We all need to remember the blessings of liberty and prosperity and the rule of law. And we all need to go out and defend them by voting this November. Thank you all for coming. Be happy to answer questions. let's go. Anybody? Yes.
Hey, listen, next year, you probably very likely going to have another congresswoman from New York. I mean, I'll tell you, I'll see you.
Right.
So, you know, she's contending for a platform as a politician.
Right.
And a lot of people in this room actually became, you know, many of the from Southern country. So can you make some comment, you know?
Right. You know, it is ironic, isn't it, in this day and age, and it's reminiscent of the 60s. Those of us that are old enough to remember the 1960s, and unfortunately I'm one of them, remember the sort of radicalism that engulfs the Democratic Party in the 1960s, the Students for Democratic Society, the Weather Ground, all of this, and they got very violent like Antifa, but they rallied around socialism and economic collectivism. And there are a couple of issues that many in this room know all too well with that economic model. The first and foremost is that people fundamentally want to better themselves, their family, and their community first. I talked about immigration a second ago. What is the greater incentive? To work hard so you can have a better life and your children can have a better life, or work hard so someone in South America can have a better life? If everything is taken from you, and remember, right now, about half of what everyone earns collectively in this country goes to government at one level or another. The top marginal rate, often tell the tax reform bill that we signed was not 39.6% at the federal level, it was actually 43.44. Then you had Mark Dayton's take of 10%, that's 53.54. You had self-employment taxes of 15.3%. And as that great economic philosopher Phil Mickelson once said, this ain't working for me. What happens is when people get less return on their work and investment, they do less of it. Just let me give you an example. What is the first thing that politicians on the right and the left, but especially the left, say we need to do to stop smoking among youth? Raise taxes on cigarettes, right? If you increase the cost of something, you get less of it. People choose to do less of it. You know, Starbucks is going to sell a lot less coffee at $10 a cup than they are at $3 a cup. That's the old supply and demand curve we all learned in economics, right? Well, why is it then, if you increase the cost of work by raising your taxes, increase the cost of investment by raising capital gains taxes, that you don't expect the same thing, you get less of it? And what you have in the annals of history is every single country that has adopted a free market model versus a socialist model. It's plain as day. You can have look at Austria and Hungary. Many of the same peoples, they are on the Berlin Wall line, and the East and West. One adopted socialism, one adopted free markets. One prospered, one didn't. South Korea and North Korea. You can look at them all. So it works. When people can keep more of what they earn, they tend to produce more. And that's economic growth. The other thing, and I want you to think about this real quickly, is if you allow Bernie Sanders to decide what's going to be produced, and that's the socialist collectivist model, that the government, remember the Soviet Union had a 5-year farm plan, this is how many crops are going to be produced here, here, and here. How do they know? Which government bureaucrat predicted that the iPhone would take the country by storm? Which government bureaucrat predicted Uber would be a disruptor when it comes to the taxi industry? Not a one. There's no way that there is an intelligentsia out there that can predict what should be produced in Kansas, what should be produced in Montana, or what should be produced in the 2nd District. They are not omniscient. And so they invariably end up producing the wrong things, and you have shortages, and they have surpluses in the things they choose to produce. And that's exactly what socialism or collectivism is. It doesn't work, and it always ends up, you know, they always say that capitalism is the unequal distribution of wealth. Socialism is the equal distribution of poverty. Everybody's got it. And that's what we've got to fight for, to maintain our way of life.
How's your campaign?
Campaign is tough. I mean, the Democrats are feeling their oats. They think that, well, they're just throwing a collective temper tantrum, is what they're doing, or temper tantrum, I should say. But that enthusiasm gap, if you will, is concerning to all Republicans. Because if they show up at the polls in the midterm, and we don't, or the people that believe like we believe, then it could be a problem. I firmly believe that if everyone shows up like they did in 2016, and then if all good people that work hard and pay taxes and want more freedom, including freedom of speech, which is under assault right now, if they all show up, I think we'll be fine. But that's the big thing, is voter turnout. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.